Welcome everybody, SF Live, episode number 42. I'm joined by Jason Weber in a second. He's the president and CEO of Alianza Minerals. But as always, you know the drill. Before we get started, use hashtag AskANZ, that's the company's ticker, for your questions on Twitter. We already received quite a few questions. You can find them on Twitter using that hashtag or just find them under our announcement post this morning. So also follow us on YouTube, follow us here on Twitter, obviously. Follow us on Spotify, Instagram, we're on social media all over. And make sure to give us a thumbs up. Make sure you turn on the notifications and alert buttons. That way you always get a push notification on your phone when we go live with new content. And it is my distinct pleasure now to introduce Mr. Jason Weber. Weber? Well, I'm German, so I'm going to say Weber. Yeah?
Weber, yes.
Who's joining me actually not from too far away. He's also here in BC. You were out in Maple Ridge, correct?
Port Coquitlam.
Close.
Almost
close. Like I knew it was yeah outside of town. But Jason and I, we do share an office in downtown Vancouver. So I'm not sure what you would call it. Is that arm's length? I can't reach you from my desk, so I'm not sure what it's called. So
voice length. I can hear you sometimes when you're on the phone.
Exactly. So voice length. And but we share an office. We often have good chats, and it was time to bring him on because I think Alianza is doing some really interesting things. And first of all, Jason, like how are things for you, and how has COVID affected you and the company?
Well, thanks, Kai. Thanks for having me on, and I hope you're doing well. I haven't seen you in probably since PDAC, even though we're in the same office. So, which is probably the big difference, the biggest difference, anyways, with COVID, just not being around the office all the time and to share that those talks about stocks and geology and business in general. So, I think that's been a big adjustment. Fortunately, I'm pretty set up. I can work from home. There's not a big crew to manage in the office, so that's been good. But I think it's really understanding sort of the new way of doing business now, both the business side of mineral exploration, but I think also the execution in the field. I think we went from a business where you were pretty, yourself, took care of yourself out in the field. You had your camp crew. If you were remote, you were sort of insular. You didn't have to worry about the outside world. But now we're so much more in tune with, new people coming into camp and, sanitization and keeping everybody safe because of COVID-19. I think that's a really big change for us. And it's changed the way we think about executing our programs. And of course, we just started a drill program, and that was a big part of the thinking setting up for the program, is just how do we do this? How do we execute safely?
No, I can see that. And you are active in different jurisdictions. You got a project in the Yukon, you got a project in Nevada. Maybe since we're on that topic for now, do you see different COVID reactions to it? Like, are there differences in how you have to work and safety procedures?
Oh yeah, and I think it really comes down a lot to the communities that you're working in and near, and how they are reacting to the pandemic. For example, in the Yukon, there's a 14-day quarantine for anybody entering the Yukon right now. So I understand that's going to potentially be ending soon, but so even just to go get a crew into the Yukon right now, if they're not native to the Yukon or living in the Yukon, then you're going to have a 14-day period there where you're going to have to isolate. As opposed to Nevada, where the outlook is a little different. It's you can get into the state from anywhere else in the United States, no problem. And the community has been very welcoming, really, looking forward to having exploration crews in camp and understanding that, knowing that we're going to be operating safely, they've taken it quite well. So, those are the two differences that we've experienced so far right now.
Okay. Now, let's talk about your business model first before we dive into the recently announced drill program there at Horsethief in Nevada. How do you describe your business model? Because originally you're a prospect generator, but you're also drilling. And give us an idea how you would sum it up.
Yeah, we call it, for lack of a better term, a hybrid prospect generator model. I've been involved with the prospect generator model for for years, probably most of my career, really. And In some cases, we operate it very strictly. As for example, when I was with Rimfire Minerals, we didn't drill programs ourselves at all. We always brought a partner in to fund the drilling. Now, as we've come along and evolved, there is a certain amount of control that you could potentially give up when you bring in a partner. If they're funding, they're controlling the funding cycle and when programs are going to be executed. So I wanted to get away from that a little bit by controlling some projects myself. And the other opportunity it gives you is that, if you do make a discovery, you do own 100% of it. So it's that risk reward aspect of it as well. But I think the biggest piece that came out of it for me was just, I really like the aspect of having partners help fund exploration. And it's not just the funding side, it's the expertise, the access to people who have a different skill set than I do geologically, and having that access to those people in a partner is fantastic. Essentially, it's free, right? So that's been a real plus for us. That's something I really value in those relationships that we build in the business model.
No, and next one is a bit of a loaded question, but the hybrid prospect generator model is interesting. I think you have 14 properties, okay, and you want to drill one or two yourself. So you always have the favorite child, right? Like the same theory. Like, how do you joint venture a project off? Like, let's say you got partners in Coeur and Hochschild, so they're no dummies by no means at all, right? So they, of course, want to pick the best projects, but of course, you want to drill the best projects yourself. So how do you get around that conundrum, like the dilemma or the pickle you're in there?
Yeah, it's you do have to be a little bit careful because if you are operating on, if you're a pure prospect generator, the potential partner is always saying, yeah, okay, this is their best project. We're comfortable taking it on. But I think the key is when I have a project, be it a gold project or a silver project, I've got a list of companies, especially in the mid-tier and majors, who I think this project suits. So I'm looking at it from the perspective of what is that company looking for. So I determined that Hochschild's looking for gold projects with 1 million ounce potential. They really like Nevada. Well, Horsethief was a great fit for them. A small or a porphyry, let's say a porphyry project in British Columbia, may not have been a fit for them. So it's being able to sort of take your projects, push them towards a certain subset of the community that you'd like to be a joint venture partner or an option partner with, and pushing it that way. And then sometimes it just falls into your lap where you've got a drill target that maybe your investor group says, look, we really want you to drill this, and you don't ever get it to the table to start bringing joint venture partners or option partners around to look at it.
Okay, no, I think that's a perfect answer. It's politically right in the middle. So it's not like you're feeding the scraps to the joint venture partners. You're keeping the best for yourself, or you have to drill the scraps, right? It's always a bit of a mixed bag there.
Right? And one thing on that, Kai, is sometimes a drill hole is what a project needs to get it over the hump. There may be a perception about it. Maybe you need some more geological information that only a drill hole is going to provide you. So, that's another way to sort of take that next step forward. And if you get lucky on that drill hole, well, then of course you're going to keep drilling it yourself. And then maybe somebody else comes in and takes it off your hands at a much higher price too.
No, the last point is a very good one. That way you increase value tremendously. Okay, let's talk about the joint ventures. As I said, you have 14 projects and you're working with companies like Hochschild and Coeur. How do you structure those joint venture agreements?
Well, a lot of it, and I've been this way through my whole career, a lot of it depends on jurisdiction and the partner. If you've got a project right next door to an operating mine, probably your partner is going to be the best, and your partner is the operator of that mine. They're probably best suited to operate that program. So I like to get operatorship. I think that's a great way to offset costs is by us conducting the exploration. We can collect a management fee, help pay for our G&A in the office, cover some of my salary. That's a great way to move the project forward. But it doesn't always work out that we're the best operator. So, for example, in our deal with Coeur, they were looking to be the operator for obvious reasons. We're 12 kilometers from their Silvertip mine. It's the same geology. They're taking the principles they've been applying and learning and building on the exploration at the mine site, and now they can apply those to the geology surrounding. And so that's from the operatorship side. That's how I structured it. It's pretty much open to who's the best suited to operate the project. From the actual agreement and payments and that sort of thing, work commitments, I look at it from the perspective of what does this project need to see? What is the required expenditures that are going to give us an idea, and our partner, of where this project's going? Is that $1 million? Is that $10 million? Is that $15 million? So we'll break down those expenditures over sort of 3 to 5 years usually, and then when it comes to the cash payment side of it, I'm trying to get as much cash up front as I can, but you always have to balance that with the fact that for somebody to pay you a bunch of money up front, you have to be able to justify it. So maybe there's sunk costs, something like that. Anything above that really should be success based. So if the project is successful, then they are making continued cash payments, and if it's a junior company, you partner with, maybe share payments as well. But I try to make it's really important, I think, to have an agreement that your partner is going to be happy with and you're happy. Or the other way to look at it, maybe you could be a little happier and maybe they could be a little happier with it, but we're both at the same level on it.
Yeah,
so
at least you're pulling on
it's
the
got to
same
be a
side,
win-win.
right? So you're going in the same direction. That's the plan, right? You want to be successful and develop something there, ideally. So I think that's key. Let's dive a little deeper. Let's dive into the projects themselves real quick. And Hochschild and Coeur are super active right now, and you just announced start of drilling on Monday, if I'm not mistaken, in Nevada. So run us through that program right now, and what are you doing with Hochschild there?
Yeah, so Horsethief is the project that we're partnered with Hochschild on. It's in southeast Nevada near a little town called Pioche. It's in the sort of the southeast corner, about 290K northeast of Vegas. And Horsethief, it's a project we've had in the portfolio since the inception of Alianza, which was the merger of Estrella Gold and Tarsus Resources. And Tarsus had this portfolio, just acquired this portfolio of projects in Nevada, and from Sandstorm. And Sandstorm had acquired them through a series of M&A that really started right at the end of the last uptick in the metal cycle. And these had all been projects that Frontier Gold had been working on at the time when Long Canyon really started to take off. And they had sort of targeted all these projects for their, they were looking for 1 million ounces gold. As the Long Canyon story got sort of more involved, and that was the focus of their attention, they sold off this group of properties, which eventually ended up in Sandstorm, who, as you know, is not an explorer. So we were able to acquire the projects. That was Mark Blythe, who was one of our board members, really spearheaded that. And Mark was able to acquire these projects. And so we took them, sort of narrowed them down to 4 or 5 that we really liked, and Horsethief was one of them. So one of the first things we looked at was where it sat. And it sits in a carbonate package, so it's a sediment-hosted gold target, much like the Carlin Trend or even Long Canyon itself. And when you look at the geology here, we're further east than the traditional Carlin Trend and those well-known gold trends in sort of north-central Nevada. So that got us thinking about the analogy to Long Canyon. Long Canyon is also further east, and we're sort of started to put that story together. Maybe we had sort of similar rocks. So we did some mapping, the various sort of early stage work that one does, and about the same time, Hochschild was looking for additional projects within Nevada. They've been diversifying out of South America, and we got in touch, and they were interested in 3 of our projects. We did. Horsethief was probably the most interesting of the bunch. Certainly, it was my favorite. And we did a bunch of work last year that really pinned down the age of these rocks and narrowed down the stratigraphy to the Cambrian Ordovician time period. And we have the unconformity, the contact between the Cambrian and Ordovician on the property. And the reason that's important is at Long Canyon, their high-grade mineralization sits below that Cambrian Ordovician contact.
Yeah, let's not get too technical here because we might lose a couple of viewers here, right? So,
this is the simple part of it.
Okay.
It's the smoke. The smoke lies above the Cambrian Ordovician contact at Long Canyon, and the ore lies below it.
Okay.
So
we were able that word in your talks.
Today we are. Yeah.
It's a bad word. So sorry for keep jumping in there, but just keeping you on point just a little bit. Hochschild came in just late last year, I think September, October or something, correct? And now it's already like within fairly quick turnaround time. You start drilling now. So, how many meters are you planning to drill? What's the first program looking like with them?
Yeah, so this is about a 2,600 meter program. It's we're hoping maybe we can get a little more out of that. We're trying to be a little conservative on the budgeting just with the whole COVID situation and how we operate, but we're hoping to get 10 holes in, testing 5 different target areas. And these targets were generated over the last year. We've actually had Hochschild in for just over a year. So they spent last year doing that groundwork to define that geology and set up these targets, and then of course into drilling this year.
Okay. Now, sorry for rushing you a little bit, but I've seen we got a lot of questions on Twitter, so I really want to make sure we get to that without completely expanding the format here, right? Okay, so you started drilling. What's sort of the timeline on that? Just so 2,600 meters, you said. One drill, I'm assuming?
One drill, yeah. One drill, one shift. And so they'll be on site to the until about the 13th or 14th of June. They'll take a break for 10 days and then come back and finish off the program.
Okay, perfect.
And that's the one interesting COVID sort of adaptation is the whole crew's there. The whole crew comes out for a break at the same time. The whole crew goes back together. Just try to minimize the number of people in and out of the project. So that's one change we've seen.
Nobody wants to stay at a hotel in Pioche for 2 weeks, right?
Oh, we rented a beautiful house. Okay. It's fantastic.
Nice. No, so good thing you don't have to quarantine in Nevada there. So obviously you're working with Coeur as well. That's one thing, but also you're drilling your own Haldane project. We got so much to talk about. We're trying to figure out how to condense it properly. Maybe we'll talk about Haldane as part of the questions because I've seen it pop up a couple times. So allow me to switch over to Twitter, and I'm hoping we're not forgetting any key parts, but I think some of it is quite covered in the questions, and I just want to make sure that people haven't asked them for nothing because the feedback has been quite good, so I just want to make sure we get to them, right? Kilpis Järvi, I think he's Norwegian, is asking, after the Horsethief drilling begins this week, please comment on other projects that will be active in 2020, probably Haldane and KRL. So, see, that's why what I mean, we're covering a whole bandwidth here now without repeating it. So,
yeah, for sure. So Horsethief through till July, and then we've got another project that remains unnamed because we're just in the process of acquiring it. That'll probably be the next project that'll see some exploration on it. So a gold project. So that'll be a really interesting one. So as soon as we can talk about that one, we will. Really looking forward to that acquisition. And then after that, probably the next one will be Coeur. They're looking to start in July at the Tim project, and that'll be mostly just groundwork for this year, mapping. Hope to open up some old trenches that are on the property that had high-grade silver mineralization with lead and zinc. And then that project would go, like I said, July into August probably, and then probably wouldn't look at starting in the Yukon at Haldane until later in August, September, that sort of time frame. KRL, I'm don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet on that one, whether I'm going to bring in a partner to take a shot at that one, or we'll do the next stage of work ourselves. But we do have some, I think, very close to having some drill targets there. It just needs a little bit of work on that. And then I've got 2 other projects in Nevada that will probably do some, what's the easiest way to say it? A little bit of tune up to strengthen the story on them, and look at some new potential targets there, which would probably go sometime after Horsethief is done. So those would be very small programs. So at Bellevue and BP.
Okay. He has a second question as well. Is like, could the royalty business play a more important role for ANZ in the future? Maybe let's take a step back, talk about the royalties real quick, because you have 2, I think, in the company. So let's mention those for a second, and then what's the model forward?
It's, I think probably having the royalty is the dream of every prospect generator out there, is that you get this royalty business to back up what you're doing. We have royalties in Mexico on 3 projects. They're 1%. They're capped at $1 million each. So those could be part of the future, but they're not going to be hugely impactful on the company from that respect. The other royalty that we do have, which I quite like, is a 1.08% royalty on a project called Pucarana in Peru. And this is adjacent to Buenaventura's Orcopampa complex, which they've been mining for years and years and years, sort of in the half ounce per ton gold range. And the veins trend right towards our property. And the problem, the challenge for us is that we're at a much higher elevation where we are. So we're drilling 400-meter holes to test that mineralization, potential mineralization at great depth, where those guys can just explore it from their active workings as they approach it. So we sold the project to Buenaventura and retained that royalty on it. So in some of the drilling we did do, though, we had some mineralization, gold mineralization in drilling up section from it. So it is positive. So we're keen on that one.
Okay, what are they worth to the company? How would you value them within your portfolio?
Oh, to be honest, the Mexican royalties, because they're early stage exploration, I put almost no value on it, really. It doesn't take up a lot of my thought process. The Pucarana one is one that I figure is got more value. But at the same time, if somebody came along and were to offer us a good sum of money for that royalty, I'd probably take the cash in hand now and put that to good use rather than trying to sit on it. So it's really tough to say. It's
no, sorry for putting you on the spot there. Right? Like, I didn't expect a dollar value for it or something. But would there be interest for selling it? Have you been approached by anybody?
Yeah, we've talked to a couple groups. A few years ago, there was a few companies that sort of were just starting up that were making fairly lowball offers for these sorts of things, and I don't hold that against them. That was sort of key to making their business run. But we've talked to a couple groups as recently as the end of 2019 about their interest in the Pucarana royalty, and the Mexico ones for that matter. But I don't think there'd be a lot of value in those Mexican ones if we were to sell them.
Okay. Another question that came in is like, what are your plans for the project south of the U.S. border in terms of jurisdiction and risk? And you got assets in Peru and Mexico, you said. So that sort of ties in there. Let's keep it short because we're running late on time here. So just want to we got a couple more questions I want to get to.
So U.S. is easy for me because the geological crew I use is based in Minnesota, Big Rock Exploration. Those guys do all my work down there, and so it's easy for them to access the U.S. properties. Obviously, easier than it is for me. The Peruvian properties, I don't have any plans to move those forward right now. In fact, we'd probably look at selling those off.
Cool. Okay, perfect. That's the answer to that. Now, a question regarding your cap structure or financial structure. How do you rate your shareholder structure?
How do I rate it?
Yeah.
My shareholders are fantastic.
No, it's an interesting question because you got a good mix in there. You got funds, you got management owns quite a bit. You got private investor, like high net worth private investors in there, but also a decent amount of retail. So on a scale from 1 to 10, I'd actually give you an 8 on the mix, right? So, or 8 to 9, because I think it's actually well balanced. That's my opinion on it. So,
well, thank you. I think the really what I think is neat is neat's a terrible word, but during the downturn, Mark Brown, especially, who's our chairman and runs Pacific Opportunity Capital, spent a lot of time building contacts, building relationships with people that I think has really paid off. And now we've seen, as the markets have started to turn around, those people are starting to get involved. And so I think that structure has a lot to do with Mark really working hard to build that. So I'll give that 8 to Mark.
Okay, no, it looks good. Like I saw it earlier, flipping through the deck. It's a well balanced structure. Now let's move on in the questions. Two Docs Trading is asking. Alianza obviously has exposure through several Yukon and Peru properties to base metals as well. Have you seen increased interest recently on any of these projects?
No, no, and I think that's mainly a bandwidth thing. You know, it's just hands full working on the silver and gold projects. Haven't put a lot of thought to the base metals, so that'll come though. I think I do think that'll come.
Yeah. Do you plan to add more copper properties?
No, and not because I have anything against copper. It's just the sort of list of projects I'm looking at are gold and silver dominated right now.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And now he's asking an unfair question because he's asking you to name your favorite child. So a favorite project geologically.
Horsethief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Going through. Okay, we got a couple more questions, but I think answering them would completely kill the format here. And that one is about the history of the Keno Hill District. I think we could spend hours and hours of that one. Okay.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the question, but I think we need to do that bilaterally. Jason, like to sum it up, like we've had a lot of questions. Let's sum it up. Let's put a bow around it. What can investors expect from Alianza over the next 3 to 6 months? And what are you looking for personally as well?
Well, I think obviously the progress at Horsethief is huge. That is the driver right now, in my opinion. I think going that's a month out. That's a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks for project to finish and get results. But after
can I jump in real quick? I got a question about that. Are you in charge of releasing the results, or is Hochschild leading that charge?
No, it's me. Any release I send them, they have to vet it. But
that's good.
It's up to us.
That's fantastic, actually, because a lot of joint ventures sort of disappear in the sand because the major is in charge of the news releases, and for them it's non-material, so that's important. Okay, good. Sorry.
No, and they've been fantastic on that front, Kai. Like they've been really good to deal with on the news release front. So and results, everything. So I have no worries there.
Sorry for jumping in there, but yeah.
No problem. So then after that, I think for us, the success of the prospect generator, hybrid prospect generator, is the pipeline of projects. So for me, it's no matter what happens with the projects that we have on the table right now, it's bringing in that next set of projects that we have available to advance and bring in new partners so that we have the next set of drill programs for this year and next year, and years following. So I think it's a long way of saying acquisitions are going to be important for me going forward and getting those projects up and running and into the mix, so to speak. But coming back to the next 6 months, looking for work results at Tim, then at Haldane, the Nevada stuff. Those not going to be huge, but it'll be there.
Cool. No, you'll be busy, and that's good. That's good to see. News flow will be existent, so that's important. Jason, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. It was a really informative session, and we could have gone on for another hour or so. I actually got a couple of questions we didn't even get to, so that's quite good. And everybody else, really appreciate your questions. This was great. I hope you got a lot of information out of it. I think Jason is always available. We share an office, so I'm slightly biased. I don't own any shares in the company yet for some reason. I was stupid to pass on the financing. What was it? 3 months ago? Yeah, 3-4 months ago.
Yeah.
At 5 cents, I could have doubled my money within 4 months, which would have been nice, but I missed out on that opportunity. But again, thanks for following us. Thanks for subscribing on YouTube, Twitter. Make sure if you do follow us, turn on the alert buttons as well. And just leave a comment below our videos, either on YouTube or on Twitter here, and give us some feedback. And what can we optimize? Be happy to hear from you. So, Jason, stay safe out there. I hope to see you in the office very soon.
Yeah, you too, Kai. Take care.
Bye.